Thank you for finding us again at No Stoplights. I want to thank our sponsors once again. Florence County Legislative Delegation, PLC, Commercial Real Estate, McCall Farms, Micky Pepsi of Florence, Carolina Bank, Francis Marion University, Marlboro MPD Electric Co-op, and Victors. They've all been very gracious and supportive of what we're trying to do here, and we're transitioning. I said it on an earlier podcast. I'll say it again. The backdrop will look, we lived out of a suitcase in a property that Francis Marion owned for a long time. Thank you, Fred Carter, and thank you, Francis Marion. We're transitioning to our own space in a building owned by our good friend Tim Norwood of Victors, hence the Victors coffee mug here. So thank you, Tim, very much for being patient with us as we kind of work through some of these, I don't want to say growing pains, transitioning pains would be a better way to say it. When I think of these sponsors, we did one on Carolina Clemson, and I would imagine, let's see, Clemson, Carolina, neutral, Clemson, Carolina, Clemson, Carolina, Clemson. That's about even. But there's about a 50-50 representation of Gamecock and Tiger fans, so I didn't get in too much trouble doing the one about the rivalry in the college football playoff. And I don't know that this is controversial, but it's very pointed, very blunt. It's the way I see things. A lot of people, and I want to get back in politics, a lot of people, no, not me personally, I want to get talking about politics again. A lot of people believed that Joe Biden was a better choice to be president of the United States because he was a moral man. He was an ethical man. He was a good, decent man. He was an adult. He didn't fall for the shenanigans, and he didn't say and do the crazy and comical things that Donald Trump. I'm not saying that I believe that, but a lot of people, and there were some Republicans who historically vote Republican who said, I can't go there. I mean, Trump's not, I question his morals, I question his ethics, I question his virtue, and they voted for Biden. And they were going to vote, well, they probably did vote for Harris because this is after the fact Trump's got elected again, got elected in 16, Biden beat him in 20, and he wins again in 24 by a larger margin, 2.5 million people in the popular vote, over 300 electoral college votes. But something happened Sunday night. You know what I mean? I'm in football meltdown mode over the weekend, and I'm decompressing Sunday night after all the events that we've discussed about Carolina and Clemson. I mean, you pull for the Gamecocks to beat the Tigers. 30 minutes after the game, you're pulling for the Tigers to play in the ACC championship game. Makes no damn sense, but that's what, you know, these conference alignments and affiliations and trying to get to a playoff kind of lead you down the road of. But Sunday night, Joe Biden issued a pardon. Presidents issue pardons on their way out. Not uncommon at all. I think some are justified. I think some we should be a little ashamed and embarrassed. And we could talk. Dr. Will Bold and I had a segment on the radio. He's the history chair at Francis Marion University. Dr. Bold and I had a discussion, a conversation about the, I don't say the oxymoronic nature of the founders when they said, we believe a president should have ultimate pardoning power because the founders were so bothered by the notion of a king. And to me, when you grant a president the authority to pardon anybody for anything, it reeks of a king. I mean, I'm like, I'd love to sit down with some of the founders and say, why did y'all, I mean, in the spirit of democracy and a representative republic, why did y'all believe a president deserved full authority on who he can pardon, who she can pardon, and why? There's no explanation needed. I mean, there's some formal documentation that has to be filed. I don't want to get into the legal weeds. I'm not capable of that. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a scholar by any stretch of the imagination. I understand the constitutionality of presidential pardons. I've read the Constitution. I've studied the Constitution. I believe in the Constitution. Therefore, I believe that a president has the authority bestowed upon him by the Constitution to do exactly what Joe Biden did in pardoning his kid. But there's a political angle that we have to talk about and discuss and address. If you were a voter who believed that Donald Trump would abuse the privileges of being the president without the limits of morality and ethics and virtue and just the common decency human beings expect one from another, do you feel let down? I never bought into the narrative, and this is where I get real blunt. I never bought into the narrative that a lot of folks did, Republicans and Democrats, that Biden is a more moral man. He is a more ethical man. He is a man of virtue and character and integrity. I never bought into that because I've never been able to figure out how Joe Biden got rich. I've asked that question a million times on the radio, probably a couple times on this podcast. We can argue about how much money Trump has, but the majority of us understand where his money derived from, where it came from. Trump is a developer. He is a real estate mogul. He has golf courses and apartments. He has casinos. He has Mar-a-Lago would be a resort sort of property. There's a portfolio of businesses that you can evaluate and say, okay, he's making money here, but he's losing money there. Welcome to my world. They don't all go like greased lightning, but you could somewhat understand from a business perspective how Trump made money, how he paid his bills, how he kept his fuel in his jet, how he paid for Trump Plaza in Mar-a-Lago. He negotiated with the banks. Now, one of the district attorneys said he broke laws and negotiated with the bank, despite the bank agreeing to lend money, him agreeing to pay it back and paying it back, the government in its pursuit of Donald Trump. But I want to go back to, I don't spend much time on Trump. I don't want to make this about Trump because it's not about Trump. I want to say this, that if you are one of the people who believed that Biden was more moral, more ethical, more virtuous, then you got exactly what you deserved. And that is a dishonest man who has always been a dishonest man. Joe Biden has always peddled political influence. Joe Biden's access to wealth and fame and fortune has never been about golf courses or condos or casinos. It's always been about kind of a family business of I'm in the middle of a government that has a lot of say around the world, and we kind of tell people where to stand and what to do. And I understand how that world works. And I'm going to enrich myself and my family based upon not golf courses, not casinos, not hotels, but rather peddling political influence for a fee. And you can't conclude anything other than that. Once again, I'm not a legal scholar. I'm not a constitutional scholar. I've not read verbatim the pardon, but I did read a lot about the investigation into the Biden family. And some of the IRS agents came and told they were and said they were told to stand down when they started following some of the money. What do we say here? Follow the money. Some of the IRS investigators started following the money. And the money got close to the center of power, that being the American president. And the IRS told some of its subordinates to stand down and let that be. Well, I don't have the authority to investigate at the federal level, but I know who to trust in the media and who not to. Aren't many that you trust, but there are a few out there that try hard to get it right. And I began about a year ago trying to really understand the Biden family and how they become wealthy. Joe Biden in his 30s, I think, maybe his 40s, bought a house owned by the DuPonts. He's a senator from Delaware. They're probably one of the most wealthy families in the world, probably still. But they are natives of Delaware. I think Wilmington, E.I. DuPont, Demers Inn. It's a city in Delaware. I can't think of the name of the city. But anyway, he bought a home owned by the DuPont family. And I'd scratch my head like, okay, the guy's a senator. He never had a job outside of being a senator. I'm not sure what his family does, but how do you buy a house owned by the DuPonts? If you're making $120 or $30 at the time, which is a good salary, not enough to buy a house with the DuPonts. But I started kind of just digging into this, and it led me down one rabbit hole and another rabbit hole and another rabbit hole. And I've concluded today, as on this edition of the Stoplights, Joe Biden didn't pardon his son. Joe Biden pardoned himself and his family. Joe Biden gave a blanket pardon for any crime his son committed and was charged with, for any crime he committed and has not been charged with, for any crime he could potentially be investigated with, he can't be charged with. I mean, it's a blanket. It's basically unconditional immunity from January 1, 2014 to December 1, 2024. Joe Biden has basically said, I don't care what Hunter Biden did. He's got a pardon. He's got a presidential pardon. He's got immunity and cover from any sort of charge or conviction that may come his way. And when you go back and look at the beginning, January 1, 2014, That is about the same time that Hunter Biden became a board member at Burisma. That's about the same window of times where multiple LLCs were created, where wire transfers from from other countries made their way into bank accounts. We're talking about Trump having hotels and golf courses and casinos. The Bidens were in the mailbox business. I mean, that is their business. For every hotel Trump has, they had a mailbox. For every golf course that Trump had, they had an LLC. For every casino that Trump has, they had a wire transfer. And there's no conclusion to draw, but that Joe Biden, because Joe Biden didn't pardon his son for a tax or gun crime. Joe Biden pardoned his son for being a bagman. And we can talk about addiction. We can talk about fatherly love. I understand it. But that's not the case, guys. And you got to be candid and honest. And I don't care if you don't like Trump. I respect those that vote for somebody other than Donald Trump. I don't have a lot of respect for those who find Trump indecent and immoral and unethical, but defend what Joe Biden and his family have done and were never interested because they'd made their mind up that Trump bad, orange man bad, Trump derangement syndrome is what the phrase has been coined as. But I think it's time now for every American to be honest with themselves, whether you like Trump or not, and say, okay, I didn't vote for Trump because. But I don't think you can offer a counter argument that Joe Biden was more moral, more ethical, had more integrity and more virtue, because he never has. He never has been an honest man. He's never been an ethical man. He's never been a moral man. He's not a good and decent man. He's a political prostitute. And on his way out of the door, he used the authority bestowed upon him by our founding fathers when they said in our Constitution that the president has unlimited pardoning power. But I want you to remember that Joe Biden didn't pardon his son. Joe Biden pardoned himself and his bagman. And there's $27 million that has made its way from foreign governments, wire transferred into bank accounts and mailboxes owned by the Bidens. What did Hunter Biden do to get paid by Burisma? Nobody knows. What did Jim Biden get paid for to do a lot of lobbying and consulting? Nobody really knows. Well, you don't have to hit this country boy in the face with a wet mop. I mean, I can put two and two together. And when I saw the pardon, and I knew the gun and tax charge, and I think they were going to be sentenced December 12th, if I'm not mistaken. I knew in my heart of hearts that this is not about tax evasion. This is not about a gun crime. This is about a family on their way out of the door that said there's a set of rules that apply to every other family in America, and then there's a set of rules that apply to we, the political privileged. And I don't know. I say this with a straight face. I mean, it's still a crime, but I don't know how the federal government endorses charging any future American for a tax or gun charge. I mean, we talk about the blindfolded lady of justice and the fairness of our justice system and the equality that we always seek in making sure people are treated the same way. You can hate Trump till the cows come home. There is no way you could defend what Joe Biden did. Joe Biden is exactly who I thought he was. And in the last days of his presidency, he revealed to the American people exactly who he is.